I'm a list girl, so I'm gonna give you 5
Okay.
things. I tried to, I
Great.
went back
I
through
love
all
it.
the policies that I really love
Yeah.
and looked at things like trends and what people are asking us for, and I kind of identified like 5 key things that I think
Okay.
we're seeing, but also I think are there for the long haul. I don't think these are trends necessarily. I think it's kind of just the future of policies. So the first one is that we're seeing bereavement policies specifically that aren't in other policies. So employees want to see a policy that it doesn't just sit as page 11 of a standard leave policy. They want some recognition that bereavement is significant, and that it deserves its own policy, deserves its own kind of time and attention to it. But then on top of that, they're incredibly short. So I've been really surprised at some of the policies that we're getting lately, and some of the policies, once they go through our recommendations, you see an 8-9 page policy be condensed into a page or 2 pages, because there's a recognition that when you're bereaved, or if you're a manager who is the more likely person to be reading this policy, and you're about to go into a conversation with someone, or you've just found out that someone in your team is bereaved, you don't have time to read 9 pages. And if you do, you're going to be skimming that, making your own assumptions, making your own kind of judgments on what that is. So making it super clear, this is what you need to know. And I literally read one just this week that said, top things to know, other bits that might be relevant, here's kind of the next steps, and just laid it out super simple and very kind of almost like formulaic. Like, this is exactly what you need to know. These are the kind of questions we're expecting. The second one is that we're seeing a shift, and people have been asking us for this more and more. Someone even just asked me for it yesterday. What are the words we should be using? What's the tone? I think we're moving away from policies sounding inhuman, kind of restrictive, clinical. I'm really shocked at some of the words that people use sometimes, in the language that they use, especially when I know the person that has written the policy, which is often the case.
Sure.
I think, you don't talk like this. I know that you're a warm, empathetic, compassionate person, and your policy makes you sound like you're a robot. And it's really strange why that happens sometimes. So I think, one of the biggest tips we give to the people that we work with when they're rewriting their policies is read it out loud. If you wouldn't feel comfortable saying it to someone's face, you need to go back and rewrite that policy. And sometimes it doesn't seem like the most kind of professional or HR-centric thing to do, but talk about what you want people to feel when they read that policy, or how you want people to understand the support that you offer, and record yourself saying that, and then go from there, rather than trying to infuse like warm, friendly words into a really robotic policy. Start with what you want to say, how you want it to feel, and then kind of go from there. The third one I would say is we're seeing a ton of flexibility, or more flexibility. So one of the only members that we have, or the only member currently who has received our Gold Award, which is kind of, I know today we're talking about gold standard, and kind of best practice. One of the reasons that they got that, which is Aviva, who's one of the largest insurance providers here in the UK, they have, I think, around 18 million customers. So huge, huge organization, which is to say, if they can do this, I think other organizations can too. One of the things that really stood out when we looked at their policy was they offered a really generous amount of bereavement leave, around double the national average here in the UK, but they were also super flexible with when people could take it. So their employees can take it as hours rather than days, which we loved. They can take it, we're seeing organizations saying you can take pre-bereavement leave if you know that someone is unwell, or if you're anticipating that you're going to be bereaved, take that time to be with your family as well. And also things like, if you want to celebrate or observe an anniversary, if you have religious holidays, or there's some cultures where there are things that you do a month, 3 months, a year down the line after someone dies, recognizing that people might want a day off that's paid to do that with their family. So flexibility around recognizing it's not just the funeral, it's not just the immediate kind of time period that they're going to need leave. The fourth one, which is my personal favorite one, because I think it's super archaic, but everyone still does it, is defining or differentiating between family members. So one of our members, Co-op, which is a really large retail group here in the UK, they switched recently to closeness of bond, which I really liked. So they don't say, if it's a parent, a spouse, a child, you get this amount of days, everyone else gets that amount of days. It's recognizing that, these traditional family structures that we've often relied on don't really exist anymore. People grow up in multi-generational households, they live far away from their family. Let people decide who they're close to, rather than deciding it for them. And the last one, number 5, this was long-winded, but hopefully this is useful to lay it out in the structure. But I think something we're definitely seeing, particularly the employers who who get it, kind of get being a compassionate employer and really live and breathe that, is they're trusting with their policy. So I think we talked before about, policies can be such a temperature check of your organization generally. I think, I posted something recently that was like, show me your policy and I'll tell you about your culture. If it's 9 pages, super restrictive, watertight, your culture is probably really bad. You probably don't trust your managers. You probably don't trust the people that you've hired to do their job or trust that they're going to live your values. So Patty McCord at Netflix kind of famously said, she only tolerated fully formed adults, which is to say, if you've hired the right people, if you've trained your managers well, you can have a trusting policy where you're generous, you're flexible, you let people decide who they should take leave for. Because, who are we to say that, one person deserves more leave than another, or how quickly you should be back at work? I think, trust your people to make the right decisions. And when you do trust your people, you can have this super short, direct, clear policy that is open to conversation, that recognizes that, they may need support further down the line. But I think thankfully, like, we're seeing these shifts.